What's going on, gamers? This is DBM Gamer here. So one of my personal favorite stories in Destiny are the tales of Jaren Ward and the Last Word. Well, today I have the inspiration for the Last Word and the death of Jaren Ward. But before we get into that, I have to get to my shoutouts. My shoutouts is how I show appreciation back to the community that has gotten me this far. And I want to give shoutouts to Vortexian Gaming, Crazy Monkey Man, I Feel So Tongue-Tied, White Lad 88, Mike Loesch, Ricardo Lopes, Brent Kalkman, Ali Sewell, Oh Yeah 1943, and Roman the Regulator. So let's start with the actual inspiration of the hand cannons in Destiny. Every hand cannon in the game has an unusual trademark. The barrels align with the bottom of the cylinder. Now this is completely different from the common revolvers we all used to seeing. Well, let me introduce you to the Mateba. The Mateba auto revolver's alignment is different from most other revolvers. The barrel is aligned with the bottom of the cylinder instead of the top. The reason for this is it lowers the bore axis, which directs the recoil in line with the shooter's hand, thereby reducing the twisting motion or muzzle flip of normal revolvers. Now, variations of this handgun have been featured in a few of my favorite animes, Trigun and Ghost in the Shell. Now look at this variation of the Mateba. Have you seen hand cannons in the game that resemble this? I have. So after looking at the basic Matebas, look at a few that are dressed up. Can you see where there are striking similarities? I do. Look at this Japanese concept one. Now how about this one with engraving on it? Now if you mix all these together, it's pretty easy to see where the last word comes from. Now just add the hammer mechanism back in and a little bit of neon glow and you get one of the best hand cannons in the game. Now before we go forward, I want to make sure that you're up to speed with Jaren's tale so far. If you have watched the video that I have linked up in the top corner and have heard the theories that I have at the end of that video, we'll press on. Now this is the story of Jaren Ward's death. It was the 4th night of the 7th moon, 9 rises since any sign. Trail wasn't cold, but lukewarm would have been an exaggeration. Jaren had us holed by a ravine. Heavy wood along the cliff's edge caught the wind, holding back the cold, and a rush of water muffled our conversation. We'd seen dual skiffs hanging low as they cut through the valley. Wasn't known as fallen territory, but any more than that's a dangerous assumption. There were 6 of us then, 3 less than 2 moons prior, but still 1 more than when we'd first turned our backs on Palamon's ash. We took a rotation for watch during the night. Movement was kept to a minimum and communication was down to hand signals and simple gestures. We could hold our own in a fight, but only the dead went looking for one. A hard truth cut in direct opposition to our reasons for being so far from anything resembling civilization, much less our safety. The skiffs had spooked Kressler and Nada, and in truth me as well, but looking back, I think we were all just grasping for good reasons to turn back. Not because we would turn back, but because it seemed our only real hope, and I think we all knew it. Forward we were headed, into the unknown, and following the footsteps we were. It all just started to feel like a never-ending dead end for a while. But Jaren never wavered, not once. At least not to any noticeable degree. It was his drive, his conviction that kept us going. And it's hard to think on, but if I'm honest, it was his death that rekindled my own fire. A fire that was all but exhausted on that cold night. He seemed confident we were close. But more than confident, sure. He seemed sure. No one else felt it, our own confidence, and any enthusiasm we had was set to wither as soon as Brevin, Trin, and Mel were gunned down. The ghost, Jaren's ghost, never said a word to any of us, just hung there, always alert, always judging, not us per se, but the moment, any moment. I never got the sense it thought any lesser of us. More than that, it was guarded, wary. We knew it could speak, we'd overheard them a few times, just brief words, and no one ever pressed the subject. From time to time I caught its gaze lingering on me, but always assumed the intention was a result of the bond that Jaren and I had. He was a father to me, and at the time I didn't know why he'd singled me out as someone to care for, someone to protect, and after all the loss I welcomed it. But looking back, taking in the arm's length at which he kept the others, I guess I should have known, or at least suspected there was more to it. We all awoke that night, closer to morning than the previous day. A crack of gunfire split through the wood, then more. Far off, but near enough to pump the blood. A familiar ring, the last word, Jaren's sidearm, his best friend, then another. A single shot, an unmistakable echo calling through the night, hushed, cutting. One shot, dark and infernal, followed by silence. We crouched low, quiet, listening, hoping. Jaren was gone, off on his own. Maybe we were closer than we'd allowed ourselves to believe. Too close. He'd gone to face death alone. I couldn't admit it, not at the time, but he thought he was protecting us. After such a long road, years on his heels, a trail littered with suffering and fire, maybe he just couldn't take the thought of any more dead kids, as he called us. The echoes faded, and we all held still. No way to track the direction, no sense of rushing in blind. What was done, was done. The cadence of the shots fired told a story that none of us cared to hear. Last word it hadn't been, and somewhere in the world, close enough for us to bear absent witness, but far enough to dream, Jaren Ward lay dead or dying. And as there was nothing to be done, hours passed, an eternity. We held our spot, but as the sun rose, the others began to fade back into the world. Without Jaren, there was nothing holding us together, no driving force. Vengeance had grown stale as a motivator. Fear and longing to see more suns rise drove a wedge between duty and desire. By midday, I was alone. I couldn't leave, wouldn't. Either I would find Jaren and set him at ease, or the other would find me, and that would be a fitting end. Death marching on. But then emotion, quick and darting, my muscles tensed, and my hands shot for the grip of my lead slinger. Then a confirmation of a horrible truth I had already accepted as Jaren's ghost came to a halt a few paces in front of me. I exhaled and slumped forward, still standing, but broken. The tiny light looked me over with a curious tilt to its axis, and then it shot a beam over my body, scanning me as it had done the very first time we met. I looked up, staring into its singular glowing eye, and it spoke. What a cliffhanger to end on. So let's break this down. On the surface, the narrator says, and it's hard to think on, but if I'm honest, I think it was his death that rekindled my own fire, a fire that was all but exhausted on that cold night. When I read this, I at first thought that this was the end of my theory of Jaren Ward turning into Dragon Yor, owner of the Thorn, until I started doing some digging. Jaren Ward and his group of kids, as he refers to them, are trailing something, possibly the other, and had left the ash of Palamon. Ash could be metaphorical for what happened when Jaren gunned down Magistrate Loken, or the events that led up to it. It also could mean something else. The narrator says that he distinctly heard one shot from the last word, and then heard a shot from something dark and infernal. Anyone who has fired the Thorn can tell you it fits the bill perfectly. Have a listen between the two. So this places Dragon Yor and Jaren Ward in the same place at the same time. So what if it's simply Dragon Yor as a rogue guardian that they're chasing, and that Jaren just lost a gunfight? It's possible. The narrator, who I believe to be Shin Malfour, says, either I would find Jaren and set him at ease, or the other would find me, and that would be a fitting end. He seemed confident we were close, but more than confident, sure. He seemed sure, but how could Jaren be so sure? What if deep down, Jaren knew what was happening? All of the events of Jaren's death, although there is no body, happened at night. Now this is a quote from Thorn. And in that cool evening air, as dusk was devoured by night, the noble man ceased to exist, and in his place another stood. Same meat, same bone, but so very different. Dragon's path begins at Palamon and continued to Durga. What if Dragon Yor only comes out to play when the moon is in its cycle? More like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. The terror that Dragon causes is what Jaren is chasing. It could explain the whole mystery of what happened at Palamon. It would explain why Dragon makes references to the moon. This story takes place on the 7th moon cycle. Jaren's group lost 3 members. Remember when Dragon gunned down 3 people? Until possibly the moment in the story where Jaren no longer exists and only Dragon Yor remains. It may all be coincidence, but time will tell. Alright guys, that's all I've got for today. If you like this type of content, just hit the like button, or leave a comment with your own theory, or just hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. But as always guys, have a good one.